trail miles apart, and I won't leave, 'cause I guarantee that I'll never find where you are. Won't be, 'cause I'll never see why you're so afraid that you are away from me. You're so afraid that you are away from me.
Welcome back. Thanks so much for joining us. This is Stigma Does Not Define Us. This is a podcast by Mental Health. Here at Mental Health, we like to feature stories of men who have really gone the distance. And this gentleman we have today is really a perfect example of going the whole distance from a very dark place to taking responsibility for his own healing. And now he is inspiring and helping others get on that same path. And I am just so proud of everything he's done. Here at Stigma Does Not Define Us, we believe that one story can save a life. And today we are very, very proud to feature Paul Thompson, and his story is definitely going to inspire you. Paul, let's switch places. I'm going to bring you over here. Boom, there he is, folks. Paul, thank you for joining us. You've been so kind to give us your time today. I've watched you on several podcasts, and your story is truly inspiring. And as I said, you're a great example of when you do put in the work, when you do take, the responsibility for where you've been and what you can become. It's just, your story is beautiful. So I'm just going to let you start. Just go all the way back and just let us know what it was like for you growing up, and when was that moment that you were like, okay, I need to ask for help now.
Yeah, firstly, thank you for having me, Stacey. I really
Absolutely.
appreciate this. I've done a few of these podcasts, and I love doing these podcasts because, I'm sharing my story, just like a lot of people out there that campaign to really break the stigma, but also to encourage men and women to talk and reach out and feel it's okay not to be okay. So thank you. My story, it really starts from childhood. My upbringing wasn't the best, actually. I was brought up in an abusive home with my mum and stepdad, where I experienced quite a lot of trauma and isolation and neglect growing up. And it really lived with me for a long time, with growing up into independent living to today doing this video. But it really started from an early age. I experienced a lot of mental health, which I was really confused about at a young age, because when you're kids, you're not really sure what's going on. You think it might be, it might be the weather, it might be causing it, it might be something else. There's no education on it. And when I was that age, growing up into early teens, there was a lot of anger, there was a lot of confusion, there was a lot of, there's a lack of support, really.
Right.
And there was one summer's afternoon where there was an opportunity to escape from the environment I was in, which was, at home, and I was chased out the house by my stepdad. And unfortunately, I was in a position where somebody could take me in, which was a next door neighbour, which I still see today as a guardian angel. And I was taken in because the neighbour could see how distressed I was. There was a few cuts and whatever on my face, and he took me in. And it was from then on, actually, Stacey, I started to start my recovery, actually, from that age. From the age of 13, I sort of went into care after that, foster care, long term for 5 years. Wow. And it was then I started to develop life skills, develop emotions that I didn't think I had in regards to caring for other people, caring for a dog, even, that I was blessed to have in my environment, and also just feeling accepted, feeling that I'm not the black sheep,
right?
feeling that I'm invested in with love, that I was listened to, that I was treated normally, you
Yeah.
know, and
Yeah.
it gave me an opportunity to blossom,
Mhm.
to really focus on what I needed to do in my life at that time, and that was my education.
Yeah.
And then I started to really grasp my my teenage years by the education,
Mhm.
sporting activities, learning
Mhm.
how to eat properly, learning how to cook even with life skills.
Yeah.
And this was a development for me. This was like a big, massive turning point in my life. And I went through the care system, went into independent living, went into relationships, went into employment, like we all do.
Yeah.
But the mental health would still be there,
Yeah.
with the inner child, with the childhood being damaged
Right.
and not being healed because
Mhm.
of the fast track life that I was living, going
Right.
into care,
Right.
going into independent living. And it wasn't until the age of 32 where I actually tried to take my own life, actually. You might have seen that on my blog and with
Yeah.
various podcasts.
Mhm.
And the reason why I tried to take my own life is because of the build-up of events that was occurring, with triggers, with relationships at the time, with
Mhm.
bullying at work, and all
Mhm.
these factors that were appearing and sort of happening in my environment. It was triggering my inner child with my childhood.
Yeah.
And that's when I was in a position to take my own life, because I exceeded all avenues with help,
Yeah.
with battling the stigma in my work placement, which was a male dominated environment,
Yeah.
to
Mhm.
trying to talk to my mates in the changing rooms, to really talk to my mates and associates at the time in the community, and to have no comeback or reassurance or that acceptance.
Yeah.
That was me done. That was really my way of
Mhm.
this is it. I can't really fight this anymore. And I became a dad as well at the age of
Oh.
29. And that was massive triggers in many ways as well, being
Yeah.
a dad and having that responsibility to be a dad and be
Yeah.
that perfect dad and strong dad, and fighting that at the time. It was so much to deal with, Stacey. So,
Yeah.
and that's why I'm here today doing what I'm doing with campaigning, because there's a lot of men especially that do hide their emotions
Yeah.
because they feel it's okay, it's not okay to talk, and they feel it's a weakness to
Mhm.
reach out because they're seen to have a problem. And I do this because there is no shame, and it is a massive sign of strength to talk and reach out. And like I said, there's more to it. There's more to it in the blog, but basically, Stacey, that is the nutshell of
Yeah.
why I'm here today.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And I have listened to several of your podcasts, and I've really combed through your Instagram page, and it's so inspirational. I think what's heartbreaking to me, about children and the environment they're born into, something I say to a lot of people that I help is, you know what, just because people can get pregnant doesn't mean they know anything about parenting. You know
Mm.
what I mean? And so you have this child who's a blank slate, and
Yeah,
then that environment, that growing environment, becomes their normal, and so they don't even recognize that the dysfunction is in fact dysfunction, and it's not until somebody else takes you under their wing that you go, "Wait a minute, none
yeah,
of that was okay," and so thank God for this neighbor, who provided you with healthy, nurturing and love
yeah.
and more normal,
And it wasn't just my neighbour. There was my foster family. There was
yeah.
a guy called Richard who was it was an amazing person in my life, and still is, where I had that opportunity to go into semi-independent living before I was,
Yes.
let loose in the big wide world, if you like. So I
Mhm.
obtained the skill set to have life skills, to know how to budget with food, with bills and stuff like
Mhm.
that, to
Mhm.
live independently in my own space and having responsibility. To all these people that
Mhm.
they're still in my life are guardian angels, and
Yeah.
I know there's a big stigma around people being in your life for the right reasons or wrong reasons, and I
Mhm.
always not afraid to say guardian angels, because
Right.
I believe in people being in your life at any time for the right reason, sometimes the wrong
Mhm.
reason, that
Mhm.
people are on our path, and
Mhm.
it's how we choose to accept and
Yeah.
take on their advice
Yeah.
and whatever. Do you know what I mean?
I do. And for people who are stuck, part of this is finding the path because people feel stuck and they're like, How in the heck do I get out of this?" I want you to talk about that path. You mentioned your foster family and thank God for them. How does that happen? And then the next step with, you said Richard, and I know you talked about him prior, like how could someone get on that path so they can kind of move on from where they are if they're feeling stuck? How does that process work?
For me, at the time, it was believed in that
Mhm.
I was given responsibility, given reassurance, and also encouragement to do this.
Mhm.
Because when I was living with my, my family when I was young,
Mm.
growing up with no encouragement, love, investment,
Mhm.
then you have that. Even at that age, you have that non-confidence,
Mhm.
self-esteem issue.
Sure.
And then when I started to obtain that in my teenage years and having that encouragement to go to the next step and
Mhm.
live independently and semi-independently, that was my drive. It was at that time as well. It was a real challenge to know that I can do this.
Mm.
If I can be adaptable in a new family quite quickly, which is what I was cherishing and relishing,
Mhm. Mhm.
then I'm going to be doing other things. I think that was going to be coming my way. So that's probably my answer, really, is that I just cherished and embraced the opportunities, because I
Okay.
never really had opportunities when I was a child.
Right, so the opportunities to grab it when it happens, to embrace
Yeah,
it when it
yeah.
happens, yeah, or when it presents itself. Um, what were your resources or a favorite method of healing, growing that really spoke to you?
Really good question, actually, Stacey. I think for me, nature is a massive thing
Mhm,
for me. So being in nature, being by the beach, I'm quite blessed in the southwest of England where we have beaches and nature.
mhm.
We are in this part of the world here in the UK. It's really nice, Stacey. So
Yeah.
for me, when I was in foster family, just as an example, because of the neglect and isolation that I had for long periods in my childhood, the early childhood, when I was in foster care, I was given an opportunity to be out there on my own with my dog at the time, Jade, who also is a guardian angel. Um, to be out in nature, to be out in fields for 6-7 hours of the day, to
Yep,
find myself, to have an escapism,
yeah,
to know that I've got me time, that I'm let loose, I'm out of the cage, I'm not in isolation, and I've got trust from a new family. And, having a dog with me as well, Jade, who sensed the vulnerability in me at the time, that was just incredible for me. And
yep,
I never look back for that. And I use coping mechanisms from then. So I
okay.
learned a lot from natural coping mechanisms that I obtained
Mhm,
just
mhm.
from the opportunities I had. But yeah, for me, it was identifying what I needed, obviously with nature and stuff, but also having that realistic approach that, hang on a minute, why is my inner child screaming at me? Why am I having these
Right.
voices and
Mhm,
feelings?
mhm.
And you know what? It was only when I had the breakdown at 32 where I was obtaining counselling, CBT, where they really give me an awareness of what really could be going on in my environment. And for me, it was my inner child. So it was about going back to my childhood,
Sure.
about reassuring myself, about healing the child in me,
Mhm,
for
mhm.
me to obtain, a healthy life, healthy
Mhm.
relationships,
Yeah.
and also not to be in a position where I'm obtaining triggers every 5 minutes.
Yep. Yep, and that's one of my favorite quotes is you have to become the parent to your inner child that you wish you had, and
Yeah,
you clearly have done that, and it's cliche, but it's so completely true.
yeah.
So I'm assuming, there's anxiety, depression, you had the suicidal, attempt, and was there any substance abuse mixed in there? Alcohol, drugs, things like that?
Yeah, there was. Yeah, I mean,
Mhm,
I dabbled with alcohol
mhm.
around about that time where I tried to take my own life because I
Mhm.
wanted to numb the pain, really,
Yep.
naturally.
Mhm.
And there was a bit of a problem with alcohol. I'd go out 3 or 4 times a week.
Mhm.
I'd go into work with, my breath being
Mhm.
stinking. I would
Yeah.
be out of control in life, really. And
Mhm.
I just was trying to obtain numbing mechanisms with alcohol. I did dabble a
Mhm.
little bit with drugs, only on a couple of occasions,
Yeah.
but it was more alcohol based, where I'll be isolated at home, the curtains would be closed, the
Yep.
music would be on, and the
Yep.
alcohol would be in place.
Yep.
Um, it's funny enough, I do that now once a week. One of my therapy tools is to actually have a music night and have alcohol, but there's a limitation because I'm in
Right.
control of life.
Right.
And I know that that's a massive thing for me to have that comparison, to know that at the age of 41, I can stop at 2 beers, but I can still enjoy music.
Right.
Where I was at 32, I had to have 20 beers to enjoy music. You see, it's flipped reverse. But it's good to have that comparison because you know where you are in life, you know where you were before. And that goes to anyone watching this, that it is good to compare your background and your struggles, because we need to have gratitude in our life. We need to know where we are now, where we were before. And that for me is a massive driving force for me, really. But yeah, alcohol was really the substance where I dabbled with for long periods, actually, Stacey.
Yeah, because and then it's layered. You know what I'm saying? Our problems are layered. It's not just depression. It's not just anxiety. It's not just the suicidal thoughts. Now we have the substance that is like a virus, and it's just doubling down on all those things. And so, to be peeling back each of those layers to become where you are now, to get to where you are now is an accomplishment. And you should be proud of yourself. And that leads me to you sort of answered the question, but one of my favorite questions is, okay, so something happens tomorrow, you're triggered tomorrow with whatever it is that would be that trigger that would send you down that dark path. What are you doing different today to than before CBT, before, that breakdown? How are you handling that trigger now compared to before?
Again, it's a really good question, Stacey. Yeah, I think before I would battle against it. So I wouldn't have any diagnosis of what was going on. I would just be confused, be angry, and I'll just battle against the emotions, what was going on, brushing it under the carpet, knowing that it'll be better the next day. It might be the weather, it might be because I just had a bad day. But now, if I have a trigger now, I sit back. I'll make sure I'm in an environment that's quite safe, that's quite relaxed, that's quite neutral. And then I'll just say, hang on, this is what's going on. Let's see what I can do to really identify the trigger first and foremost and work with it. Sometimes triggers that I obtain, I can come across can be quite difficult, but that's all regarding milestones of dates. If it's my lad's birthday, if it's my foster dad's birthday, Christmas, things like that, that's where I need to have my coping mechanisms for dates. And when I do have that inkling of fear with a trigger, then for me, my coping mechanism, and we're all different, is to sit down and just take a breather, knowing that this is what's going on, but taking the positives from it, that I'm safe now. The inner child will get healed. I've just got to heal. I'll do some breathing techniques and work with how I'm going to, get myself better in that duration. And usually it's a deflection. So it's doing something I enjoy doing. If it's a walk or something completely out of the ordinary, which will just deflect from the thinking, really. This happens. It doesn't happen a lot, Stacey. It happens now and again. It's more when it's a festive situation, if it's Christmas or a birthday date or something like that. But sometimes it's good to plan ahead as well. So if you know it's coming, it's good to have a plan in place to know that it is on its way. Let's try and find some tools how to deal with it and maybe change a location or environment. But as we all know, triggers can come and go without our knowledge. It could be a smell, it could be an X that looks like somebody, it could be anything that could trigger us. But it's really important that we are kind to ourselves. It's really important that we don't beat ourselves up and we don't feel pressured, that we just take that step back, evaluate what's going on, and just give ourselves our TLC and reassure ourselves.
It's so true. The feel to heal. People run and run and run. They keep themselves busy, and then something in life is going to slow you down. Whether it be a surgery, a child, an event, the pandemic. You know what I'm saying? Something is going to bring you to a screeching halt, and all that stuff behind you that you were running from is going to, going to pull you over. And so I think, just as human, nobody likes being in pain, so you avoid. And what people have to understand, and I hear it in everything you're saying, you have to sit there and you have to feel it and you have
Yeah,
to grieve it and you have to cry. You have to go through it to get on the other side of it. You can go round and round and round, but until you go through it, it's not going to be behind you. It will always be chasing you. So I think people have to sit and feel and grieve, be angry, whatever it is. You have to get through it to let it
absolutely.
go.
Yeah,
So that is so, so key. Now, the pandemic is affecting the whole world.
yeah.
How did you do? Everything comes to a screeching halt. Everything's closed. Did you at any point, did it kind of, it brought us all down, right? Silly question. But you know what I'm saying? Did you feel yourself going down because of the pandemic, because of the isolation? How did you handle that?
Yeah, yeah. Again, like everybody, we all had to adapt, and we all struggled. I don't care what anybody says. I think we've all struggled in
Yep.
some capacity.
Mm,
If it's losing our independence, if it's losing our hobbies that we enjoy doing, I think we've all been affected. I don't care what anybody says
yeah,
about that.
right.
But for me, when we were hit by the pandemic, it was a real trigger at first because of the isolation as a kid
Mm,
that I had to stay in and not do
mm,
anything and not go out and do what I enjoy doing. For me, that was a huge trigger.
mm-hmm.
It was a huge trigger to know that this is on its way. I can't actually go out anywhere
Yeah.
and be isolated, and that was a
Mm-hmm.
massive childhood trauma trigger, really.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, how I dealt with it was evaluate the situation to know that this ain't going to be a permanent fix. We are going to get over this, but the gratitude from this is that I'm safe. I'm at home. I'm in my castle. I'm not going to be hurt. I'm not going to be I'm not going to go downhill. I've got food in the cupboards. All these like actions I was taking on. It was for me. It was a driving motivator because I knew that it wasn't a permanent fix and we will get
Mm-hmm.
through this.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it was all about timing. Actually, lockdown. I was in a crossroads in life with employment,
Right.
and I previously had a charity where it was mental health, where we were helping so many men in the community, and that came to a close in the pandemic. And I was in a crossroads what to do. And with my natural instincts to be, keeping busy with, using my coping mechanisms,
Mm-hmm.
I started home education, and I did 7-8 months of home education doing mindfulness and life coaching in diplomas because
Good
that's the path I wanted to take. And the lockdown was an opportunity
to get
to
it
keep
done.
busy at home
Mm-hmm.
because it was an incentive, and also I had no choice actually because I couldn't go out anywhere. So I just knuckled down and became a full-time student at home.
Yep.
And I got qualified, and I was using Instagram as a real platform for an advantage to do live videos like these,
Mm-hmm.
quizzes, learning off other campaigners, be inspired by other people, knowing that I'm not alone in this pandemic, and using the internet as a real tool for what was going on in isolation for all of us. So yeah, and I think for me it was a reflection in many ways. I was reflecting a lot on money. I was reflecting a lot on my hobbies. I was reflecting a lot on what I could have done better. And when I was at home and I had all this time on my hands, I started to reflect and really start doing some more journaling and get into a grasp of,
Mm-hmm.
hang on a minute, I could do things better. I could save a bit more money. I could do a little bit more education. I could do some more nature walks and get out there and use some physical exercise. So for me, I started to appreciate my surroundings and environment a lot more because I had that time to focus.
Right.
Because before it was fast tracked, I was in a bit of a crossroads with my with my charity, and it was a bit of a toxic situation. But yeah, it was all about really having a reflection and a real awareness to try and improve actually on what I was currently doing. You know what I mean?
And that speaks to, look, I have all this time here. You know what I mean? You used it in such a constructive, positive way, some self-care, education, personal development. It's fabulous. And,
Yeah.
it makes you wonder, like, your Instagram page, wouldn't have been as quite as developed or quite as intense. And I mean intense with such valuable content. I like want to copy and repost just every single one of your posts, because I'm like the way you word things. Seriously, I'm a writer, so I'm a big words person, and the way you word things can mean all the difference. And so you have those posts with one green word and then your thought below it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love those. And I was like,
Well,
oh, go ahead.
the
I'm
thing is,
sorry.
Stacey, yeah, and yeah, the thing is with that, I obviously with education in my childhood, I was a little bit behind because of the environment I was in. I was on catch up basically because of the upbringing I had. I just about got a GCSE actually when I was 16. My foster dad sat me down every night, got my GCSEs, but I knew I could have improved.
Yeah.
And I've always had a passion for writing and education. And when I was younger, I actually wanted to be a journalist when I was really young in sport. I used to do little football reports, and at school, I used to do little cutouts of newspapers and make my own little transfer thing. And I used to love it. And do you know what? I always wanted to go back to school. And in my late 20s, well, actually, after my breakdown, when I was on the healing road, if you like, I went back to school, and I went back twice a week at college to obtain a better grade, but to learn, actually, because learning is a massive therapy for me and everyone. And I got a niche for writing a bit now. I'm really detailed in what I do, not just on social media, but in general. I'm really like hot on things like that now because I care, and I'm in control, and it's confidence, and is having that sort of I don't know, just self-development and self-caring yourself to know that you've got standards. Do you know what I mean? And it's nice to know that you've got standards in life, really.
Yeah, well, the words, everything is so thoughtfully written. You know what I'm saying? The intention is so obvious in what you're trying to say to this person reading it. And I just, part of having you on, of course, is your personal story, which is very important for everyone to hear. But, like I said to you, I also wanted to bring you on because people need inspiration. People need to be able to answer that question. Hey, who's your favorite speaker or influencer, or, who gives you motivation? Paul Thompson is definitely that person for a lot of people just reading your page. So I want to bring you on here. Anyone who's listening, go see Paul Thompson's page, because this is the guy who could make that light bulb go off, that I can do this. I can get beyond this dark place. And I mean that genuinely. I mean, hours I was combing through, and I'm like, screenshot, because, and of course I will always put your name on it, because I would never do that. But, I will, because I'm like, this is so just right, said just right. And that matters. That so matters. Before you were the influencer, what are I like some of these fun questions. Do you have a favorite book, author, things like that? Was there a go-to book that you were like, wow, this person helped me?
I'm a big fan of Matt Haig.
Matt Haig. Okay.
So if anybody comes across Matt Haig online, his Instagram page is amazing, Twitter, Facebook.
Okay.
But there's a book called Lonely Planet, which is my favorite book, actually, and it's a go-to for a read, for reassurance, to revisit if I need a reminder on ups and downs in life, and like I say, talking about triggers and stuff. The Lonely Planet's a really good insight of mental health, actually. And it's a #1 seller. I do recommend Matt Haig, that book in particular, but also Tony Robbins, as you may know.
Yeah,
he's an amazing speaker, and I follow what he does, and he's my absolute, he's like the god of inspirational speaking, I think. But there is a guy in the UK actually called Mark Billingham, who I'm a massive fan of.
Yeah,
I don't know if you know Mark.
Oh, we do. No, that's a common one. Yeah, Billy Billingham, they say. Yeah,
and Mark's amazing, and he obviously with his military background, but what he does with the SAS Who Dares Wins, and the challenges that people are facing on that show, and how their lives are just transformed because of the motivation, the encouragement, just finding themselves and really going to that limit, to know that they're being pushed to the very limit and capable of doing what they're doing, without realizing before. And I'm very inspired by that program, but I'm very inspired by Mark in particular. And I'm looking forward to seeing him when I go to America. Actually, I'm going to America in May.
Where? Where?
Well, my partner's brother and live in Orlando.
Okay.
So we're going to go to
Beautiful.
Orlando in May, and then when we come back, we're watching the live talk with Mark Billingham. So yeah,
Oh,
so
that's
it's so much to look
exciting.
forward to. But yeah, I really can't wait to watch the show. And I literally just booked it last week. Me and my partner were right at the front actually, and I'm just going to be in awe of him. And I don't usually and I've met a few celebrities like footballers and various people in the past. I've never really had that. I've never been starstruck, but
Right.
I think I will with Mark, and I think there will be an opportunity to meet him. Yeah, I think I will be. I think I'll probably be lost for words,
I
which is
think
first for me.
I think that's okay, especially when someone moves you to that very deep space, especially when
Yeah,
you need to be moved, when you are stuck with this problem deep down inside and that person helps you dig it up and, and heal. Of course you are. I think it's okay. I mean, don't be too hard on yourself.
I just hope I don't meet him, and I'm like,
Ah, no, that's all right. We all do that. We all do that. You had said that on one of your posts, and I don't want to give away your secrets or anything, but you said, you have a method, you have a process that people really started turning on to. And that's why you were like, I can really help people out here. I have a certain, I forgot how you put it, but you have a healing step by step. And I was just curious if you wouldn't mind sharing that in vague terms. I'm so curious
but
what that is.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it depends. I mean, there's all different healing methods I use
Mhm,
and I explain.
mhm.
But for me, like, I'm all about the inner child.
Okay.
My focus and my experiences and my outlook on everything is all about inner child, and it is for all of us.
Yeah.
We may not have an awareness of it. People might be watching this video thinking, inner child, what's inner child? But we've all got an inner child. We've all
Sure.
got a child that we must love and cherish and just look after
Yeah.
because of
Exactly.
our childhood experiences. We all still have our childhood memories, our feelings, our smells, our
Mhm.
memories, and so much more. But like myself, that had the opportunity to deal with it and still dealing with my childhood. I think we
Mhm.
all never
Mhm.
get, we're always learning, we're always maintaining and looking after ourselves. But for me, I knew that was the pinnacle. I knew that was the deal breaker to really look after and nourish and love
Gotcha.
my child in me. And healing is all about that for me.
Mhm.
And there is different examples, there's different techniques, different, situations, but predominantly triggers and all the ups and downs that I embrace and whatever, it is all through my inner child, really. And yeah, and I think for anyone that may be relating to this video in regards to bullying, to
Oh, yeah.
memories, things happening at work, relationships is a big one as well. So being triggered in a relationship, just really having awareness of what is the trigger and why
Yeah.
you're experiencing it. If it is a childhood trauma, if
Mhm.
it's something that's traumatic in your 20s maybe, or something that you may
Mhm.
not know about, but it's worth
Mhm.
looking into therapy or counseling, or do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think what you're doing there is you're making you're making people face it instead of run from it. You're making people even recognize. Some people don't even know they're running from something until someone
Yeah,
like
yeah,
you comes along and says, "Hey, look at this." And
yeah.
then they're like, "Wow." And then it hits them like a ton of bricks. So that's fantastic.
And a lot of men especially don't like the word counseling because of the
Mhm.
stigma, and they think they're a problem going.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why I ventured into life coaching,
Yes.
which is not really something that's a popular, I'll say popular, but it's not a well-known
Right.
employment in England, in the southwest of England. I think I'm probably one of two, I think, in the southwest.
Really?
But I knew there was an opportunity and a gap. And I say a gap, I know it's probably bad to say, but a lot of men that I speak with that are my clients
Mhm.
will dread counselling and may not need counselling, even though they've probably been recommended. They
Mhm.
may just need that coaching and awareness of what's going on at the present time. If it's encouragement on their confidence, if it's self-esteem, and that's where I'm looking at it from a point where I was struggling, what I needed at the time, and I'm thinking there is a stigma around,
Yeah.
counselling may not needed counselling. I mean, I did personally, but
Mhm.
there's many people that get advice on counselling
Mhm.
and get tablets chucked at them through a GP. But that may not need tablets. They may not need that in-depth counselling, but may need something for that present time just to give them a boost. And coaching
Right.
is something that, you know, I've learned to enjoy, but also the lads that I've got with me and you know, on my books are really appreciating and learning from without being involved in the stigma, if that makes sense.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I think the life coaching comes in. I mean, life coaches are basically procrastination police. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
You have a goal and you set it. And you know what? You're a life coach. What is what is your goal? Healing is your goal for whoever your clients are. And let's set let's set some goals, 1 step, 2 step, 3 step, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I think the way you're using your life coaching it's perfect. You know what I mean? So no, I like how you're using that because, you know, I've gone through all the life coaching certifications as well. And it's like, you know, they always, you're not a counselor, you know, you're
Yeah.
a goal setter, but hey, if the goal is healing as a life coach, you can put them on that path, give them the
Yeah.
resources they need and show them where they can grab their personal development and healing from. So that's very cool.
And one thing I did touch up on earlier, and I said about healing and progressing with, you know, embracing mental health and having to deal with stuff, is one thing that I've learned as well, and I do this regularly in the car, is journaling.
Yes.
Because of the thoughts that we all consume, if it's negative, positive, sometimes we can't think straight. Sometimes we take so much on that we forget things. And that's not really a criticism, but sometimes we're programmed to have an in-between balance, and it's impossible to really remember things. But doing journaling and encouraging my guys to do journaling and having a things to do list gives you a purpose of control. It gives you a purpose of a clear thought on what's needed, and, you know, knowing that you can consume information individually on that list. And knowing that you can feel better for it, and there's a confidence there, knowing that you're in control of life, and you know what your focus is, and you know if there is a pattern of behavior, if something's not quite right, maybe on a Tuesday, and you've been writing a journal for 4 weeks, you think, hang on, every Tuesday something's happening. That can identify a trigger in itself, really. So there's a lot to take from journaling, as you know, Stacey. But a lot of people that may be watching this may not have heard it or even tried this technique.
Yep, I absolutely agree. It does take some discipline. I'll tell you, it takes discipline. Yeah. You can write every single day for 3 days and then another month goes by. But yeah, if you put it aside that time from 8 to 8:30 every day, I'm going to write for 30 minutes or something. It's a discipline for sure. But I do agree because, you know, you get it out on paper, you can get it out of you and put it away, and it sort of floats away from you. And that is key.
It's a bit like, it's a detox in a way, isn't it?
Yes, for sure. Absolutely. I agree. I have 2 questions for you before I let you go. There's 2, one fun and, you know, one more serious. The first one, favorite movies. Do you have a favorite movie that just really lifts you up and makes you feel like you can fly by the time you leave the theater?
I'm looking at my partner because I don't know which one to mention, but
I'll mention them all.
do you know what? You might laugh and you might think, well, hang on a minute. And again, this is shouldered. Wizard of Oz. It's before its time.
Absolutely, sure.
And the story, you know, obviously the story behind Wizard of Oz and the whole concept of it, I find it fascinating. And I watched it with my foster dad. When I think it was within the first year I was there, actually. And I remember it was a Sunday afternoon. It was on telly, and I had all the snacks out. And I remember watching it, and I was in awe. I was like, "Oh my, this story!" You know, I was just in awe, and I loved it ever since. And that is my favorite film of all time.
What is it? I'm so curious. What is it? Is it a character? Is it a scene is it the whole thing, or is it specific things?
It's the whole story of it. And I just think like how the different characters have the way that all the characters are like sort of meeting up, and you know, just the courage and everything, and with the lion and the rope, you know what I mean? I love it all. I just think there's a relatable content for everyone in there. And it's a feel-good film. And I think it was done in the 1940s, I think. And to see that to see that the way it was produced then
Yeah,
was, for me, before its time. I just
for
think
sure.
it's a wonderful film.
I agree. Yeah, completely. For me, when I watch that, it is a lesson in the people who cross your path, the people you need. All of a sudden, you're in the middle. How in the world am I going to get through this or that? And then, boom, this complete stranger can
Yeah,
cross your path and make all the difference. So
yeah.
you have to have faith that the universe is going to bring you that. So I get that. That totally makes sense. I'll give you one more movie. What's another one?
Yeah, I mean, I like Gladiator,
Okay. Hmm.
proper blokes film, but
Yep.
I think Rocky 4. I love the Rocky
Hmm.
film, the good and the bad, and
Great.
the good wins, and obviously with the
Yes.
massive Russian monster, he had all the
Yeah.
drugs in him and all the equipment.
Right.
But it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win, and I just love that. I love that
Right.
story, how
That's
Rocky
great.
wins with nature, and
Hmm.
it's a bit like us, we thrive in nature, and we heal in nature, and
Yeah.
Rocky got strong in nature, and
Yeah. Yeah.
that's probably and the music's really good as well.
Yeah. Oh, the music. And for me, you definitely answered that question properly, because I don't know if you know, but I'm on another podcast called The Rocky Files, and all we do is interview Rocky fans. So
Wow.
yeah, so we interview Rocky fans who have cool inspirational stories.
Nice.
And so yeah, so you get 10 points on that answer,
Get
my
me on
friend.
that podcast.
Oh, I'll bring you on. Are you kidding me? Absolutely. If you're a Rocky fan, you're on. That's the only that's the only requirement. Yeah, and you do have quite an inspirational story. So actually we would love to have you on. And then my last question, and it's a serious one, but it matters in that, this is a very important message for anyone who's listening, who's been in that dark place, as dark as you have
Yeah.
been. If someone's ready to be like, you know what, I can't do this anymore, what do you want to say to them?
Yeah. So my advice, I encourage anyone, men and women, that are feeling low, that needed all help and avenues, and with their strength, is to really talk and really reach out to your loved ones, to your boss at work, and to anyone, and talk and feel that, and just have that reassurance that it's only the stigma perceived. It is okay to talk. It is okay to feel weak. It's a massive sign of strength to recognize something's not quite right and actually talk about it. Yeah. To talk about it to your GP, to talk about it to your boss, to talk about it to your friends and family takes massive courage. It's a massive sign of strength, but it's the biggest step you'll ever take, because you will not look back once you start accepting, talking, and understand about your struggles, for sure. And if I can do it, you can do it. That's my philosophy. And yeah. I reached out because I was in a dark place and I was found on a bridge. And my advice is, it doesn't have to take that limit to reach for help. You can reach for help and ask for help, and with professional help, whatever, without going to that limit. You can talk to your boss. You can say to your boss at work, look, can I just have a breakaway? Can I have a 5-minute chat because this is going on at home, or there's something that's not right, or whatever. It's really important to have an honest communication with the family, your partner, because there's only the stigma perceived. There's no shame in struggling, and there's no shame to talk and reach out, because people will help, people will listen, and people won't judge.
Yeah. And that's just perfect. It's just asking, and I'm so glad that is the message. So much of the time when I get to this point in the interview, it's just asking. People are so willing to help if you just ask, most of the time, so that was a beautiful message. Thank you, Paul, so much for joining us. Just everything about the way you write and the way you talk is so sensitive and caring, and the intention behind it is so pure. And it's so nice to talk to someone like you that has so much invested in the wellness of others and the healing of others. It's just so nice to see. So I'm going to say to everyone listening, go check out Paul Thompson on Instagram. You will learn something from the very first post, and you will feel something. You'll feel hope from the very first post. That is what I just loved about your Instagram page. It is full of hope, and that's what people need in this.
And it's just right from the heart. It's right from the heart. It for me, it's about education and prevention, but also what I like to use is relatable content. And I like to say that a lot, because not just me, but other campaigners, charity groups, we speak for so many because people are scared to speak.
Yeah.
But if they can relate in some way and take any advice from it and go and do their own therapy or speak to a GP or their partner, then our job's done, you know. And that's what it's about. Speaking from the heart, it's not about, you know, being a robot in this situation. It's about being pure. It's about being real, because mental health's real. And yeah, we're in this together, right?
Yep. Yeah. Relatable content. Great words. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's very relatable, because in all those posts, you can see a little bit of yourself in there, and that's what you bring.
And it's really important to show vulnerability as well. That, you know, I've been there and I still go through it, and I think that relates to a lot of people wishing to obtain help from either myself or through a service or a professional advisor, whatever, because, you know, it's really important to show vulnerability, because you know, we're all human, and it's really important to show feelings when you're talking and stuff like that and writing. So
right, absolutely. Well, you've been fantastic, Paul. Thank you so much for joining us. We're so excited to have you on again at Stigma Does Not Define Us. We're just a wonderful guest for us, and we're so grateful that you came and spent your
thank you for
time with
having me,
us.
and keep up the amazing work, because the work you're doing is incredible.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And you and I are going to talk again about Rocky, so I'll be getting back to you. Thank you so much. You have a good rest of your day.
Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.